Hey guys, and welcome to the FitPro Social with me, David Kyle.
And me, Ash Burley. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night, and welcome to this week's episode of the FitPro Social. We are back this week. It is me and Dave, and we're going to be talking about, is the correct way costing you money? But before we dig into that, let's say hello to Dave. How are we doing, Dave? You had a good week?
I'm doing okay. We were just saying before this, I used to usually have an iPad here, and the iPad royally screwed me over the other day and messed up, so I had to re-record something for the second time. And you know what, the frustration, I've done it once, like, that's it, done. And then it messes up, and you're like, it's another hour I've got to waste to redo it again. So I brought some screens from home, so I just got it all organized in front of me now. So hopefully my life will be so much stress-free.
So much stress-free because of multiple screens. That might be an interesting topic to talk about one week, like the tech and things that we use to try and de-stress our lives.
That then causes us stress when it doesn't work.
Exactly. Yeah. You want to throw stuff out the window. Cool, awesome. So I think we can dig straight into this topic today. Just as always with these, if you are watching live, please do say hello in the comments. We are streaming to multiple places as always. If you want to get involved, please do let us know whether you agree with what we're saying, whether you've got your own experience in this, whether you disagree with what we're saying. You know, this is the FitPro Social. It's all about you getting involved. Dave has his multiple screens out, so he's going to be looking for comments and stuff coming in from all these different places. I get the easy job of just sitting here chatting, so because I can't see in the comments on my end. But if you do have anything, please do ask away. Do let us know. The other thing I'll say as well is this obviously is the FitPro Social. We want to get you involved. And the last few months, it's been me and Dave mainly on here, but we do bring guests on. So if you do want to get involved, if you've got something you want to talk about, something that's really either bothering you about the industry or something you want to get off your chest or some things you want to share with the people in the industry that you think will benefit our audience, feel free to get in touch with us as well and come and join us on here. We'd love to have you on just for a chat. Nice and cool chat. So today's topic is the correct way costing you money? And this is based on this principle of, is it better to be effective in what you say and what you do, or is it better to be correct in what you say and what you do? And this subject came up in one of our kind of group calls that we have within our masterminds. And it's an interesting topic, I think, because I think a lot of personal trainers, a lot of coaches, especially ones that have spent a lot of time studying, a lot of time really trying to hone their craft, can struggle with this sometimes. I don't know if you found a similar with your clients.
Yeah, it's weird because you also think we're not telling you also to lie. This is not what we want to do. And like you're saying there, you've got people who studied and they know their target audience inside out. They know the best formula for them. They know the exact way of doing it. And yet they see this brand new whippersnapper on the scene who's basically blagged them because he understands how to sell and he sold them a dream, which is technically the wrong way of doing it. And they've only just got qualified 5 minutes ago, where you've been doing it for 20 odd years and you've done all these degrees and you've got all these qualifications, yet nobody's buying from you. So today it's talking about that fine line between lying to make sales or telling them what they need to hear to make that sale and then delivering what they actually need. Or as the saying goes, sell them what they want, deliver what they need.
100%. And I think an interesting way to start on this is you can actually do this in your coaching. And the chances are, as a coach, if you are quite, you've done a lot of time studying and things like that, you probably do this already with your coaching. Sometimes you may sit and talk to your clients about certain things, and you might have this perfect idea for a workout for them. You think, okay, this client needs this result. In order to get that, they need to do exactly this, exactly that, and exactly this. Now, the thing is, you'll probably start working with that client and you'll realize, because of all these other factors that go on in their lives, because of what they don't understand yet or what they don't know yet, for them to actually adhere to that program that you've done is going to be near on impossible for them. So you tend to adjust it slightly. So you give them a not perfect program, and it might not be the best way for them to get the results, but the fact that they can actually stick to it and they understand it means, yeah, it might take them longer. It's not perfect for them, but they're still going to get those results at some point in the future. And it's the same principle here. Like sometimes you can't always be perfect and correct all the time in order to get your clients' results. And the same thing happens when it comes to your marketing and your message and your sales message. You can't have it exactly correct all the time. You can't use a language that you understand. And I think a really good example of that is toning. Like if you speak to pretty much any personal trainer and say, right, what is the scientific terminology for toning up? And everyone will just go, there isn't one. There's no such thing as toning. It doesn't exist. It's just a phrase that people understand and use. But if you speak to the general public, and I walked around the streets of Mansfield where I live and just go, what's toning? They'll tell me. They'll know what that is. But if I started talking about, okay, can you explain to me what body composition is? No idea what body composition is.
Yeah. And the perfect example there, like you say, is like periodization. We're going to work together over the next 12 weeks, and the periodization plan we're going to have is going to be split into 3 segments. And then you start layering it off. And basically, you just want to say to them, yeah, every month we're going to change up your plan to make sure your workouts are effective.
Exactly, yeah. And even though it's not the right terminology, but they understand it. And I think that's the key difference. And I think sometimes it's difficult for trainers, especially because we have spent a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort studying this stuff. And I think sometimes deep down, for want of a better word, our ego wants us to show off. We want to show off like, we know this stuff. Like we're experts in this. And by using these big words, this terminology, you might think that's coming across as an expert term, but probably what it's doing, it's probably scaring them quite a lot.
But when you say ego there, I think that also could be a reason because of how many FitPro friends that you have. Mm-hmm. Like, are you trying to show off to your 50 Facebook friends who are also personal trainers, or are you trying to demonstrate to your 200 other friends who could potentially be clients that you are the best fit for them? We're not people pleasing. At the end of the day, we talked about this really heavily last week on last week's episode, that your business is the vehicle to drive you personally where you want to get to. And I remember some guy always saying before, getting likes on your Facebook post isn't going to pay your mortgage. And this really is the thing. If you're writing to please other FitPros and show how much knowledge you have and experience and so forth, and they're loving it, but your target audience is not buying from you, then you've probably got your priorities slightly wrong.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is quite a big thing. I think a lot of the times that I think because we've tried so hard, because we've worked so hard, we don't want our peers to look down on us, or we don't want our peers to go in to challenge us on these things. So what we do is to try and use these things to kind of show off our knowledge, to try and say, actually, I do understand this. I'm your peer. I know what this is. I'm talking the same language as you. But it doesn't matter, because unless you're actually trying to attract your peers into your business to offer them a service, you don't need to be talking like that. You need to be focused on what your audience wants to hear, what your audience needs, and what your audience needs to understand. And a lot of the time, they don't need to know all this other stuff. A lot of the time, they don't even need to know what you're actually going to do for them. Not at that stage. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you have to start thinking about the language that you're going to use. Like, what language would your audience be interested in? What language does your audience understand? And if you have other trainers and peers maybe on your socials, and they come on and they try and correct you on there, then deal with it. Just say, yeah, I know that, but it's irrelevant. They don't need to know that. And it doesn't matter if they're commenting. It doesn't matter if they're looking at it thinking, oh, Ash has no idea what he's on about because he's talking about this particular thing, and that's not really how it works. Let them go off and talk about it. Let them go off and talk about all that stuff on their own socials if they want to. But let's look at each of his bank balances at the end of the year and see which one has more money in it. So I know who's it's going to be.
I think a perfect example of this now could be, let's say, Apple, for example, when they bring out a new phone and they say this camera has 15 million megapixel camera. The general public are like, wow, that's a lot, yeah. And that's it. They literally stop at that point because they don't want to deep dive and say, yeah, you know what, that literally is a square 15 million times, and the colors that they have, we've got 300 million different colors that the camera can pick up, and you don't explain that to the general public. You explain to them in the language that they understand. So like Ash said at the start, if you start talking about toning, and that technically isn't the correct word if you're saying it in an academical arena, but to your clients or prospects that are following you who understand that terminology, then that's what we need to say to them. But again, there is that fine line between being truthful and honest and explaining it in their terms and just outright lying to them just because you want to make that quick sale, because you will also get found out in the end if you keep that up.
You definitely can't lie about it. Like, you can't, and it's a very extreme example here, but you can't start talking about the benefits of a carnivore diet and then give them a vegan diet on your program. Like, you can't do that kind of thing. I mean, that's an extreme example, but you can't do that. That's utter lying. But you can use terminology and use words that they understand. In fact, this happens all the time in education. If I'm sure many people listen to this who have studied, especially in the sciences, maybe in sports sciences or any other sciences, and if you think about what you learned when you went back to school, let's say you was at secondary school or whatever you call it in the States, when you kind of like 13, 14, 15, 16, that kind of age, and what you learn in science there, and you'll go and do maybe A-level science, and you'll start going a bit further up and move through the education system. And very quickly, you effectively get told to forget pretty much everything you've been taught beforehand. What you're learning there is like they're using languages and things that you understand, so you understand the principles of it, but they're not using proper terminology. And a really good example of this is states. If I said to most people at secondary school or to like primary school, how many states of matter are there? They'll say 3. But as you develop through your knowledge and your education, there's more of them. So technically speaking, that's a lie. Your teacher has lied to you saying there's only 3 states of matter. There isn't. There's more states of matter. But they've still told you that because that's what you understand. And that at the moment is going to make the biggest difference because they're using a language and a way of helping you learn. You can start building up these foundations, and eventually as you progress, you can start talking about more, you can learn about more, and it means more to you and it has a better effect. Same thing happens in your coaching. The same thing can happen in your marketing as well.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. Like when you're onboarding a client as well, you don't chuck them in and say, yeah, you need to do 5 sessions a week. You also need to track all your meals using MyFitnessPal. You need to weigh all your meat and everything. You also need to check in on Facebook every single day. You also need to send me an end of day report. You also need to book in for your monthly review. You don't give them all this stuff at the start. You slowly drip feed them into it, so then it becomes comfortable for them and you understand the process and they know why you're doing it. Because if you chucked it all in at the start, you'd lose them and that's that client gone. But by building them up gently and gradually, so they start to think it's just part of the process and they just move through it easily, they stay and they understand the process that you're putting in front of them. So like Ash was saying, that's the perfect example is, don't you simplify it for the person that needs it simplified. And then as they develop their knowledge and their understanding and how the whole process works, that when you start building it out, so you're keeping the clients for longer, because that, like we talked about niches before, your niche when somebody joins you is very different to the niche that's once they're with you, because they've already passed that niche because they've hit their target goals. And now we need to change the niche because we're now moving to a different audience because they've already achieved those goals. So if you didn't change, then they'd get bored and they'd probably leave. So if your attention cycle is, let's say, 6 months, then that might be one of the reasons, because you're still training them as your like unknown niche, the people who don't know about your fitness business, and you're trying to sell to them, but you're still delivering them that type of program and service as well. So yeah, there's loads of aspects of this where you deliver or you sell what is needed, but deliver the correct way.
Yeah, and I think that's actually the niche aspect there is a really important thing to maybe just dig into a little bit, especially from an online perspective. And I think it's the same in person as well. You have your niche, which is the market you want to work in. And in reality, your market doesn't really change. It's a niche market within it. But what will change is your avatars within it. So let's take a common way of doing this. Normally, you have a front end offer that they'll go through that might be 6 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever it is. And then you move into a back end offer, which is normally some kind of subscription based membership. Works well online, works well offline as well. But like Dave says there, people are going to progress as you go through it. So even though your niche market's still the same, you're still helping the same market as such. Your avatar is different, because the avatar that you're attracting and bringing in and coaching through that first front end offer, by definition, you're transforming who they are on the other end of it. So when they come out the other end, they're now a different type of avatar. Some things are going to the same. They're still in the same niche, but their avatar is different because they want to know different things. They want to study different things. They have different goals now. And I think it's one of the most important things businesses could do is actually look at their different avatars within their niche and how those different avatars fit into different stages of that customer journey and that client journey. Because when you understand that, it makes it so much easier to retain clients and also market to your clients as well.
Which now brings us into copywriting. You know what I mean? Now you understand the language that we need to use, the words that sell. Because at the end of the day, what you write on a piece of paper, you write it and the other person writes it, and yours is more compelling than the person who's going to buy from you. So by understanding their language, their needs, their wants, their desires, their frustrations, their pains, their worries, understanding how they explain it, how they think about it, the way they understand it, you're going to make way more sales compared to the person that's using very clunky jargon that doesn't talk to the audience. And the perfect example we have with this all the time in ads copy is a male weight loss compared to a female weight loss. We're not going ages, we're not going any differentiation, but we just go weight loss for men and weight loss for women. The reason they both want to lose weight are very different. Yeah, they want to look and feel better, but there's so many more layers to it. And once you understand those different layers, you can write copy that's going to be way more compelling, that's going to generate you these leads quicker, which is going to make you a load more sales. And then you're going to grow a much better successful fitness business. But also make sure the copy is correct. Don't lie. We'll keep stressing that. Don't lie.
Yes, you cannot lie. You can simplify things down. You can be things like, that's kind of why we say being like right and correct is different to being effective. You can be exactly correct, or you can still be right. You can still be talking about the same kind of thing, but you can simplify it down to the point where it becomes a lot easier for them to understand the language that they use. So it might not be technically correct, but it's not lying. That's why it's a very selective use of language we're using here. That's why we're using the word correct as opposed to like just making stuff up. You can't go and do that, especially in your copy. I think there's quite an interesting thing. I might jump back to when you mentioned about Apple earlier. And I'm sure people are thinking here, well, what happens if you do have some clients who want to learn more, want to know more about these things, want to understand a bit more about the technical side of it, especially when you talked about the different pixels and things like that. And like, yes, you can go market to those people, but the problem is if you do your main marketing to both, imagine if Apple's ads on TVs went into all that detail, then most people probably wouldn't buy it. They know the majority of people do that. But I'm also very much aware that there's some people out there, me being one of them, they probably be another because we like tech, that want to learn more about it. So do you know what I do when I want to learn more about something? I generally go to YouTube and I watch people on there talk about it. And I think that brings us nice onto other things you can do with this. If you think that your clients or potential clients, a few of them might want a little bit more, make strategic partnerships with people. That's all Apple do. Apple have strategic partnerships with lots of people who talk about it online with big followings, and they send products to them and they break them down. So now they're getting the two different types of, there's still the same niche, but they've still got two different types of avatars that they're marketing to because they've got strategic partnerships with other people. So there's lots of ways to actually go and do this. And people can still find that information. You just got to be quite strategic about how you do it. But don't confuse it in your main marketing, because if you do, by having that big terminology, that language they don't understand, you could probably scare away the vast majority of your clients that you could have potentially had in there.
Hey guys, we're going to take a real quick break here now.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. So if you're loving this episode and want to listen more often, then please make sure that you like and subscribe by clicking one of the buttons around wherever you're listening or watching this right now.
Perfect. Cheers for that, Ash. Let's get back to the episode. It's a strange one, because this is marketing in general. Like, we're covering so many different aspects of it, from the copywriting to the language that we sell to how we present a product to the audience, to the niche, and so much more. Like, running a business is way more complicated than we give it credit for. And I think the perfect example here now is our family and friends. Like, I'm guessing most of your family and friends that ask you what you do for a living, you simply say, I own a gym. And that's it. You stop the conversation there. You don't dive into it. You don't go deep, because when you start going deep, they're just like, oh, okay. And then they start drifting away. And this is going to be the same in all our marketing and messages and everything like that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we'll use our business as an example. Obviously, I like cruising. Dave likes cruising, or starting to like cruising more and more. The amount of people that ask you questions like, what do you do for a living? I'd imagine your answer to those people is very different to what it would be if a PT asked you what you did for a living. And it is to me. Like, most of the time, I just say we work online with personal trainers. That's it. That's literal, I say, because they don't need to know anymore. And if I was to sit and try and explain to them what we did and use the same language that I would use to a personal trainer, they wouldn't get it. They wouldn't understand it. So then I have to go into a full-on conversation, and it's not really worth my effort to want me to go in that conversation. So I'll just keep it really, really simple. And it's not a lie, it's not a lie, but it's the most effective way to move that conversation for them to understand what it is we actually do for a living. And then it keeps the conversation flowing, because that's what the aim is. My aim is to get the conversation going. But if I knew there was a personal trainer, then I would have changed my language. I would have used a different type of approach to explain what I did. I'll say, well, actually, what we do is we help personal trainers build, launch, and grow successful online fitness businesses. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, that's quite interesting. Let's talk about that. So it's neither of those things are wrong, but one's more effective than the other. One's more correct than the other. But there's no point of being that correct with that audience I had at the time. I'm sure you probably do the same, Dave. You'd probably say to an ads company or I'll run a software.
Yeah, but no, that's the exact point there. You're telling a stranger who's not your target audience, you're telling them the truth, but you're also saying that in a way that ends the conversation there, because there's no point diving deep and almost giving a sales pitch, because they're never going to buy from you. Whereas when a FitPro or someone in this industry does ask you, they're a potential client, or like you said, a strategic partner. Now I can open up and be a little bit more insightful about what I do, see how they start reacting. And if I need to still keep going, I still keep going. If not, I know when to cut back and kind of to cut that tie as well. And it'd be the same with your consultations and stuff. Like if you're sitting here talking to somebody and they're not a good fit, don't sell them onto something either. I think we've all done that in the past, where we were desperate for that sale and we know, this person's going to be a nightmare, but I really need that cash, so I'm just going to sell them onto the program. And you sold them, and then after the first session, biggest mistake ever, yeah, because you didn't missell them. You missold almost like yourself. You sold yourself something you don't really need, which is that headache of a client. So not only is it to the general public, but you're also doing it to yourself as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's quite an interesting topic, even that on its own, about how you missell and things like that. And it's very easy sometimes when you want that cash through the door. But what's really interesting, all that is doing is just like buying you a bit of cash. Like generally speaking, when you get clients like that, you don't make any profit on them, because the time it takes up and the aggro it takes up and distractions it takes up. That might be an interesting subject to talk about one of these one day, about that type of thing, about actually looking at offers properly, looking at like where your profits actually truly lie, and how sometimes your cash flow can mask your profits, but eventually it catches up with you, and what you can do about that. Maybe that's the topic for maybe another day.
Nice. As usual, if you have comments, maybe you totally agree or maybe you completely disagree with what we have to say, then do let us know. You can comment below, reach out to either of us. And if you want to come on the episode as well and talk about your thoughts or theories on this topic or any other topic, just reach out and we'll get you on as well. But until next Friday, Ash, it was great
next
as
Friday,
always.
Yeah. Muted myself then, sorry.
No, it's okay. Yes, yeah, so just say
next week we're back on next Friday. I guess that's it from us this week. So that's goodbye from me.
Goodbye.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the FitPro Social. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes.